The journey to the galactic core took 3 days through hyperspace. Admiral Park Min-ho stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars blur past as they raced toward humanity's greatest challenge. Around him, the surviving ships of Earth's fleet prepared for a battle that would decide the fate of all life in the galaxy. Long-range sensors showed the Devourer Prime clearly now. It was enormous beyond comprehension, larger than Earth's moon, feeding on the energy of the black hole at the galaxy's center. With each passing hour, it grew bigger and spawned new shadow creatures that spread out like a plague across nearby star systems. "Sir," reported Captain Lee Ji-won from her new command ship, "we're receiving transmissions from across the galaxy. Every species that can fight is sending ships to help us." The Admiral looked at the tactical display. Ships from dozens of different civilizations were converging on the galactic core. The same aliens who had once dismissed humanity as too violent were now following human leadership into the ultimate battle. Dr. Kim Nari's voice crackled over the communication system from her science vessel. "Admiral, I've been studying the sensor data from the Prime. It's not just feeding on the black hole's energy. It's using that power to open rifts in space. If it completes whatever it's doing, it could summon more Devourers from outside our galaxy." The implications were terrifying. They weren't just fighting for their galaxy anymore. They were fighting to prevent an invasion that could consume the entire universe. Captain Choi Dae-hyun joined the command conference from the Soul's Fury. His ship had been badly damaged in the Kepler battle, but his crew had worked miracles to keep her fighting. "What's the plan, Admiral?" he asked. Admiral Park studied the holographic display showing the Devourer Prime. It was surrounded by hundreds of smaller creatures, creating a defensive barrier that stretched for millions of kilometers. "We're going to do what humans do best," he said, "something completely insane that no civilized species would attempt." He outlined the plan to his captains. The entire fleet would charge directly at the Prime, fighting through its defenders to reach the creature's core. Once inside, they would detonate every nuclear weapon they had in a coordinated strike. "Sir," said Commander Nam Ji-hoo carefully, "that's a suicide mission. Even if we succeed, none of our ships will survive the explosion." "I know," Admiral Park replied quietly. "That's why I'm only asking for volunteers." Every single captain volunteered immediately. The final battle began at the edge of the galactic core. The combined fleet of humans and their alien allies faced an enemy force that darkened space itself. Thousands of Devourers swarmed around their Prime like antibodies protecting a diseased heart. "All ships, this is Admiral Park," he broadcast to the entire fleet. "Today we fight not for conquest or glory, but for the right of life to exist in this universe. Some of you will not see another sunrise, but your sacrifice will be remembered as long as stars burn in the sky." The charge began with the human ships leading the way. Captain Choi Dae-hyun pushed the Soul's Fury to maximum speed, her weapons firing continuously at the Devourer swarm. "For Captain Lee Ji-won and all the others who died getting us here," he shouted to his crew. "Make every shot count." The battle was chaos beyond description. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes as they fought through the defensive screen. Captain Yoon Sora's Silent Storm used her stealth systems to slip through the enemy lines, but even she couldn't avoid all the defenders. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, her damage control officer reported. "We're losing atmosphere fast. Seal the damaged sections and keep fighting," she ordered. "We're not stopping until we reach that monster's heart." Major Han Seojin led his remaining fighters in desperate attacks against the smaller Devourers. His pilots knew they wouldn't survive, but they fought with the fury of those who had nothing left to lose. "Phoenix Squadron, final run," he transmitted. "It's been an honor flying with you all." His fighters dove into the largest concentration of defenders, clearing a path for the capital ships behind them. The explosions from their sacrificial attacks lit up space like a second sun. Commander Nam Ji-hoo's Thunderchild broke through the defensive line with her hull glowing from weapons impacts. Half her crew was dead, but the survivors kept fighting with grim determination. "Admiral, we've made it through," he reported. "The way to the Prime is clear." Captain Song Jina launched her last squadron of fighters to provide cover for the final assault. The Iron Phoenix was dying around her, but she wouldn't retreat while her pilots were still fighting. "All remaining ships, follow me in," Admiral Park commanded, as his flagship led the charge toward the Devourer. "Prime, this is for everyone who ever looked up at the stars and dared to dream." The surviving human ships plunged into the Prime's massive body like bullets fired into a mountain. Inside the creature, they found a nightmare landscape of pulsing organs and flowing energy. The thing was alive in ways that defied understanding. Captain Choi Dae-hyun guided the soul's fury deeper into the creature's core, following sensor readings toward what Dr. Kim believed was its control center. Around him, other ships were doing the same, spreading out to maximize the damage from their final sacrifice. "This is Soul's fury to all ships," he transmitted as his vessel reached the Prime's heart. "I can see the core. It's beautiful and terrible, preparing to detonate." "Wait," came Dr. Kim's voice over the communication system. "I'm reading massive energy buildup. The creature is trying to escape through a dimensional rift." Admiral Park made the hardest decision of his life. "All ships detonate immediately. Don't let it escape." Captain Choi Dae-hyun looked around at his crew. They had followed him across the galaxy and into the belly of a monster. Now they would follow him into legend. "It's been an honor serving with all of you," he said quietly. Then he pressed the detonation button. The Soul's fury exploded with the force of a small star. Around her, dozens of other human ships did the same, their nuclear arsenals combining into a blast that shook the fabric of space itself. The Devourer Prime died in agony and fury, its death scream echoing across hyperspace. The dimensional rift it had been opening collapsed, sealing the gateway that would have brought more horrors from beyond the galaxy. The shockwave from the explosion spread outward at the speed of light, destabilizing Devourer forces across the galaxy. Cut off from their prime, the creatures began to weaken and die. Captain Lee Ji-won, commanding the survivors from a safe distance, watched the readings on her instruments. "All Devourer signatures are fading," she reported with tears in her eyes. "The threat is over." Of the 200 ships that had left Earth, only 47 survived the final battle. But their sacrifice had saved trillions of lives and preserved the future of the galaxy. The aftermath brought changes no one had expected. The Galactic Council formally apologized to humanity for centuries of discrimination and offered Earth not just membership, but a permanent seat on the High Command. "Your species has shown us something we had forgotten," Admiral Thaloran said at the memorial service for the fallen. "Sometimes the greatest courage comes from those who refuse to accept defeat, even when facing impossible odds." Earth's surviving heroes returned home to a changed world. Humanity was no longer the rejected outcasts of galactic civilization. They were the saviors who had stood against the darkness when all seemed lost. Admiral Park Min-ho, now older and bearing the scars of the final battle, established the Academy of Strategic Warfare. Students from across the galaxy came to Earth to learn human tactics and the philosophy of never surrendering. Years later, when new threats emerged from the depths of space, the galaxy knew who to call. Human advisors were stationed with every major fleet, teaching other species the art of desperate warfare and the power of absolute determination. Captain Lee Ji-won, now an admiral herself, often stood before classes of young officers from dozens of worlds. Her final words to each graduating class became the motto of the Galactic Defense Force. They called for help, and we answered. Not because we were the strongest or the smartest, but because when the universe needs someone to stand against the impossible, it calls on those who have never learned to kneel. Remember this always: legends never die. They inspire others to become legendary. In the memorial gardens of Luna Base, a simple plaque honors the crews who gave their lives at the galactic core. The inscription reads, "Here rest the names of Earth's children who charged into darkness so that light might endure. Their sacrifice saved not just our world, but all worlds. They proved that humanity's greatest weakness, our refusal to accept defeat, is also our greatest strength." The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes civilization needs savages, sometimes order requires chaos, and sometimes the most primitive species is the one with the courage to save everyone else. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, written in nuclear fire and sealed with the blood of heroes. The universe would never again underestimate the species that turned warfare into art and transformed sacrifice into salvation. The age of human leadership had begun, and the galaxy was safer for it. The massive Devourer moved through space like a living nightmare, its shadow body stretching across hundreds of kilometers. Captain Choi Dae-hyun watched it approach on his view screen and felt a chill run down his spine. This creature was different from the others. Older, more intelligent, and hungry beyond imagination. All weapons target the giant, Admiral Park commanded from his flagship. Concentrate fire on its center mass. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Nuclear missiles streaked through space like falling stars, while railgun rounds followed behind them like deadly rain. The explosions lit up the darkness, each one tearing chunks from the creature's body. But the giant devourer kept coming. It was too big to kill with conventional attacks. Captain Li Jiwan, now commanding a forward reconnaissance group, made a desperate decision. Her cruiser Incheon was already damaged from the earlier fighting, with hull breaches and failing systems. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's intercom. "Prepare for ramming speed. We're going to hit this thing where it hurts." Her crew didn't hesitate. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return home. Lieutenant Park Seong-jun at the helm set course directly for the creature's core. "Captain, we can overload the reactor," suggested Chief Engineer Yu Minjae. "If we ram them and then detonate, the explosion will be 10 times more powerful." Ji-won nodded grimly. "Do it. Send our sensor data to the fleet first. They need to know how to hurt these things." The Incheon accelerated toward the giant devourer, while other human ships provided covering fire. As the cruiser plunged into the creature's body, Captain Ji-won transmitted her final message. "This is Captain Li Ji-won to all human forces. The core is vulnerable. Get inside and hit them where they live. For Earth." The reactor detonation tore a massive hole in the devourer's center. The creature writhed in apparent agony, its movements becoming erratic and confused. Commander Nam Ji-hoo saw the opportunity and acted immediately. "Thunderchild to all missile frigates. Follow me in. We're going to finish what Captain Ji-won started." His ship and 5 others dove through the wound in the creature's body, firing at close range into its exposed core. The internal explosions caused a chain reaction that finally brought down the giant devourer. The Council forces watched in stunned silence as the massive creature collapsed in on itself and died. They had never seen tactics like this before, humans willing to sacrifice themselves to destroy the enemy. Admiral Thalloran opened a channel to Admiral Park. "You're Captain Ji-won. She gave her life to show us the way. Such courage is beyond our understanding." "With respect, Admiral," Park replied. "Courage like that is exactly why humans survive. We don't fight to preserve ourselves. We fight to protect what matters." The battle was far from over. More devourers emerged from the outer system, drawn by the energy released from their dying giant. But now the humans knew how to hurt them effectively. Captain Yoon Sora developed new hit-and-run tactics using her stealth destroyers. Instead of trying to destroy the creatures from outside, her ships would cloak and attack from within the devourer's own bodies. "Silent storm to Phantom Squadron," she transmitted to her fellow stealth captains. "Follow my lead. We're going hunting from the inside out." Her ships phase-shifted through the devourer's semi-solid bodies and detonated nuclear charges from within. The creatures had no defense against attacks from inside their own forms. Major Han Seojin revolutionized fighter combat by treating the devourers like living space stations. His pilots would fly directly into the creatures' bodies, eject from their ships, and use their ejection seats as delivery systems for nuclear charges. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Major Han," he called to his pilots. "Remember, we're not fighting ships. We're fighting living asteroids. Get inside them and make them regret it." The alien observers were horrified and amazed by human tactics. Council pilots had been trained to avoid collisions and minimize casualties. Human pilots treated their own ships as weapons and their own lives as acceptable losses. Dr. Kim Nari, working frantically in her mobile laboratory, made breakthrough discoveries about devourer physiology. She found that the creatures had vulnerable nodes throughout their bodies that controlled their energy absorption. "All ships, this is Dr. Kim," she broadcast to the fleet. "Target the bright spots inside their bodies. Those are their control centers. Destroy enough of them and they lose cohesion." Chief Engineer Huang Tamin used this information to develop specialized ammunition. His teams worked around the clock to modify human weapons for maximum effectiveness against the new targets. "Load the penetrator rounds with sensor packages," he ordered. "We need to map their internal structure before we attack." The human fleet began fighting like a pack of wolves, coordinating their attacks to maximum effect. While some ships distracted the devourers from outside, others would penetrate their bodies and attack the vulnerable nodes within. Captain Songjina's carrier tactics evolved to use her fighters as both scouts and weapons. Small craft could maneuver inside the creatures where larger ships couldn't go. Iron Phoenix to all fighter squadrons, she commanded. New mission parameters. You're not fighting enemy ships anymore. You're performing surgery on hostile life forms. Cut out their hearts. The Galactic Council forces tried to adapt human tactics, but they struggled with the concept of acceptable losses. Their civilization had evolved beyond the need for desperate measures. Admiral Thyloran watched a human destroyer deliberately ram a devourer, while its crew evacuated in escape pods. The explosion destroyed both the ship and the creature. "Admiral Park," he transmitted, "your people fight as if the universe itself is ending. How do you maintain such intensity?" Admiral Park's response became famous throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, every fight might be our last fight. We don't have the luxury of holding back. We don't fight to maintain order. We fight to create order from chaos." The human approach to warfare confused and terrified the devourers. They had consumed thousands of civilizations, each one fighting with predictable patterns and limitations. Humans fought without limits, using tactics that bordered on insanity. Commander Cho Min-soo of the destroyer Busan developed the technique of using damaged ship sections as improvised weapons. When his ship lost its forward hull to a devourer attack, he jettisoned the wreckage at high velocity into another creature's core. "Waste not, want not," he reported cheerfully after the makeshift projectile killed its target. "Everything's a weapon if you use it right." As word of human tactics spread through the galactic communication networks, other species began sending reinforcements. They had heard whispers of the humans who turned warfare into an art form and never admitted defeat. The Kepler system battle raged for days, but slowly the tide turned in favor of the defenders. Human willingness to sacrifice individual ships and lives for strategic advantage gradually wore down the devourer forces. But even as they celebrated small victories, long-range sensors detected a massive energy signature moving toward the galactic core. The Devourer Prime, the source of all the others, was preparing for the final battle. Admiral Park gathered his surviving captains for the ultimate mission briefing. Of the 200 ships that had left Earth, only 68 remained combat effective. "This is it," he told them. "The big one is heading for the galactic center. If it reaches the black hole there, it will feed on enough energy to spawn an endless army. We have to stop it." Captain Choi Dae-hyun looked around at the faces of his fellow commanders. They were tired, battered, and outnumbered, but their determination never wavered. "How do we kill something the size of a moon?" he asked. Admiral Park smiled grimly. "The same way we've killed everything else. We get inside it and blow it up from within. Time to show the galaxy what human desperation can accomplish." The final battle was about to begin, and humanity would either save the galaxy or die trying. The shipyards around Earth had never been so busy. Day and night workers loaded weapons and supplies onto every ship in the human fleet. Captain Choi Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of his battleship, watching the organized chaos through the view screen. The Soul's Fury was the pride of Earth's Navy. She was big, heavily armored, and covered in weapon systems. Her hull was scarred from battles with pirates and hostile aliens over the years. Some people called her ugly, but Dae-hyun thought she was beautiful. "Status report," he called to his crew. Lieutenant Bae Woo-bin looked up from his console. "All weapons loaded, sir. We have enough nuclear missiles to level a small moon." Dae-hyun nodded. Nuclear weapons were banned by the Galactic Council as too barbaric for civilized warfare. But Earth had never signed those treaties. They kept building the weapons that other species were too squeamish to use. Across the solar system, other ships were preparing for battle. Captain Yunsora's destroyer, Silent Storm, was designed for stealth attacks. Her ship could become nearly invisible to enemy sensors and strike without warning. At the Mars shipyards, Captain Song Jina was loading fighters onto her carrier, Iron Phoenix. The ship could hold 200 small attack craft, each one piloted by humans who had trained their whole lives for combat. Chief Engineer Hwang Taemin worked around the clock, installing new weapons on every ship. He had spent months studying the alien reports about the Devourers. The creatures absorbed energy weapons, but they had never faced human kinetic weapons before. "Load every railgun with tungsten rounds," he ordered his teams. "If these things eat energy, let's see how they handle a chunk of metal moving at light speed." The human fleet was different from anything the galaxy had seen. While alien ships were sleek and elegant, human vessels looked like flying fortresses. They were built to survive damage that would destroy other ships. Admiral Park Min-ho toured the fleet before departure. Each ship he visited showed the same thing: crews ready to fight and die for their species. These weren't professional soldiers following orders. They were volunteers who believed in what they were doing. On the cruiser Thunderchild, Commander Nam Ji-hoo showed the Admiral his missile systems. "We've got every type of explosive weapon Earth ever invented," he said proudly. Nukes, antimatter charges, plasma warheads. The Council calls them barbaric, but they get the job done. "What about conventional weapons?" Admiral Park asked. "Railguns, mass drivers, even some old-fashioned chemical explosives. If the aliens are right about these devourers eating energy, we might need weapons that don't use any." The Admiral was impressed. Humanity's reputation for violence was well earned, but it came from necessity. Earth was a dangerous planet that had tried to kill its inhabitants for millions of years. Humans had learned to fight back against everything from ice ages to asteroid impacts. Dr. Kim Nari arrived with the latest intelligence reports. Refugee ships were streaming into human space carrying survivors from destroyed worlds. The stories they told were terrifying. "The devourers don't just kill," she explained to the fleet commanders. "They consume. Entire planets are stripped of all energy, leaving nothing but cold rock behind. They grow larger with each world they destroy." Captain Yoon Sora frowned. "How do you fight something like that?" "You don't fight it the way civilized species fight," Admiral Park replied. "You fight it the way humans fight. Dirty, desperate, and without mercy." The fleet captains nodded. They understood. The galaxy had always criticized humanity for being too aggressive, too willing to use extreme measures. Now those same traits might save everyone. Captain Lee Ji-won arrived from Luna Base with the final communication from the Galactic Council. The alien leader sounded desperate and hopeful at the same time. "They're asking us to meet their remaining forces at the Kepler system," she reported. "It's their last major stronghold. If it falls, they'll have no organized resistance left." Admiral Park gathered his captains for the final briefing. The holographic display showed their route through space. It would take 3 weeks to reach the battle zone, even at maximum speed. "Listen carefully," he began. "We're not just representing Earth anymore. We're carrying the hopes of every species in the galaxy. They all think we're savages, and they're right. But sometimes the universe needs savages." Captain Choi Dae-hyun raised his hand. "What are our rules of engagement, sir?" "Simple," Admiral Park replied. "Win. Do whatever it takes to destroy these creatures. Don't worry about collateral damage or following proper protocols. The devourers certainly won't." Captain Song Jina looked concerned. "Sir, what if we can't win? What if we're not enough?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke with the conviction that had made him Earth's top military leader. "Captain, every species in this galaxy is more advanced than us. They have better technology, faster ships, and more powerful weapons. But they all have one weakness that we don't have." "What's that, sir?" "They've forgotten how to be desperate. They've lived in peace for so long that they don't remember what it's like to fight for survival. We never forgot. Every day on Earth is a fight for survival, whether it's against nature, other humans, or hostile aliens." He looked around the room at faces hardened by years of conflict. These devourers think they're the ultimate predators. They've never met a species that refuses to be prey. Today they're going to learn what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. The fleet launched 2 hours later. 200 ships carrying humanity's finest warriors headed into deep space. As they jumped to hyperspace, Admiral Park sent a final message to Earth. "To the people of Earth, your sons and daughters are heading into battle against an enemy that has destroyed civilizations across the galaxy. We go not as conquerors, but as protectors. We carry with us the hopes of trillions of beings who have nowhere else to turn." He paused, looking out at the stars rushing past. "If we don't return, remember us not as the species that was too violent for the galaxy, but as the species that was violent enough to save it." The human fleet disappeared into hyperspace, carrying with it the last hope of a galaxy under siege. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient dance around the sun, unaware that its children were about to face the greatest test in human history. In the depths of space, something vast and hungry sensed their approach. The devourers had consumed countless worlds and defeated every enemy they had ever faced. But they had never encountered anything quite like humanity before. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. And for the first time in eons, the outcome was far from certain. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, like an iron fist punching through reality. Captain Choi Dae-hyun gripped his command chair as the Soul's Fury shuddered from the violent transition. Around him, his crew worked frantically to bring the ship's systems online. "Sensors active," reported Lieutenant Bae Woobin. "Sir, you need to see this." The main view screen lit up with a scene from humanity's worst nightmares. The Kepler system was under siege by creatures that defied description. They looked like living shadows, vast and shapeless, flowing through space like oil through water. Some were the size of battleships. Others dwarfed entire moons. The Galactic Council's remaining fleet was scattered across the system, firing desperately at the shadow creatures. Their energy weapons lit up space like a deadly fireworks show, but the beam seemed to make the Devourers stronger rather than harming them. "My God," whispered Commander Nam Ji-hoo from his position at the weapons console. "What are those things?" Captain Choi opened a channel to the entire human fleet. "All ships, this is Soul's Fury. You're seeing what I'm seeing. These Devourers aren't like any enemy we've ever faced. They're not ships or even normal life forms." Admiral Park Min-ho's voice crackled over the communication system from his flagship. "All units maintain formation. Let's see how our alien friends are doing first." They watched in horror as a Council battleship fired its main energy cannon at a medium-sized Devourer. The creature absorbed the beam like a sponge soaking up water, then expanded to twice its original size. Within seconds, it had engulfed the alien ship completely. Captain Yoon Sora's voice came through on the tactical channel. "Silent storm to Fleet Command. These things are eating the energy weapons. Every shot makes them bigger and stronger." Dr. Kim Nari, monitoring from the science vessel Prometheus, confirmed their worst fears. "The energy absorption rate is incredible. They're converting the Council's own weapons into mass and strength. No wonder they're losing." A desperate transmission came from the Council flagship. The alien commander sounded defeated and exhausted. "Human fleet, this is Admiral Thayloran of the Galactic Council. We are grateful for your arrival, but I fear it may be too late. Our weapons are useless against these creatures. They grow stronger with every attack." Admiral Park studied the battle for a long moment. The Council ships were fighting with precision and honor, following ancient rules of warfare that meant nothing to an enemy that consumed everything in its path. "All human ships, this is Admiral Park. Switch to kinetic and explosive weapons only. Nothing that uses energy beams or plasma. These things want to eat energy? Let's give them something they can't digest." Captain Choi Dae-hyun grinned as he gave orders to his weapons crew. "Load all railguns with tungsten rounds. Prepare nuclear missiles for immediate launch. Let's show these shadow monsters what human warfare looks like." The first human salvo changed everything. Nuclear warheads detonated in brilliant flashes of light and heat, tearing chunks out of the nearest Devourers. Tungsten rounds traveling at tremendous speed punched through the creatures like bullets through smoke. For the first time since the battle began, the Devourers actually recoiled from an attack. "Direct hits," shouted Lieutenant Bae from his station. "The nuclear detonations are causing massive damage. The kinetic rounds are disrupting their molecular structure." The Council communication channels erupted with amazement and hope. They had been fighting for hours without causing any real damage. The humans had hurt the Devourers with their first attack. Captain Song Jina launched her fighters from the Iron Phoenix. 200 small craft swarmed toward the enemy like angry wasps. Each fighter carried conventional missiles and mass driver weapons. Lieutenant Han Seojin led the first fighter squadron into close combat with a Devourer the size of a space station. "Phoenix Squadron, attack pattern Gamma. Hit them with everything that goes boom." The fighters dove into the creature's writhing mass, firing missiles at point-blank range before breaking away. The explosions carved deep wounds in the shadow beast, causing it to shriek in what might have been pain or rage. Commander Nam Ji-hoo coordinated a devastating missile barrage from the Thunderchild. Dozens of nuclear warheads streaked toward the largest Devourers, detonating in sequence to maximize damage. "Multiple targets destroyed," he reported with satisfaction. "These things don't like our barbaric human weapons." Captain Yoon Sora led her stealth destroyers on hit-and-run attacks, using tactics the Devourers had never encountered. Her ships would appear from nowhere, deliver punishing close-range attacks, and vanish before the creatures could respond. "Silent storm to Fleet Command," she transmitted after destroying 3 small Devourers. "These things are used to fighting energy-based weapons. They have no defense against good old-fashioned explosives." The tide of battle began to turn as more human ships joined the fight. The Soul's Fury carved through a group of Devourers with her massive railguns, while the Iron Phoenix's fighters harassed the larger creatures with swarm attacks. Admiral Thaloran watched in amazement as the human fleet accomplished in minutes what his forces had failed to do in hours. He opened a communication channel to Admiral Park. "Human Admiral, your tactics are unprecedented. How are you causing such damage when our advanced weapons failed?" Admiral Park's reply became legendary throughout the galaxy. "Admiral, your people fight with honor and precision. You follow rules and try to minimize casualties. We fight to win. Sometimes that means doing things others consider barbaric or uncivilized." The human assault continued with ruthless efficiency. Chief Engineer Huang Temin had prepared special ammunition designed specifically for the Devourers. Dense metal penetrators filled with explosive charges that detonated inside the creatures' bodies. Dr. Kim Nari made a crucial discovery while studying the battle data. "Admiral, the Devourers' weakness isn't just kinetic weapons. They're vulnerable to anything that doesn't use controlled energy. Chemical explosives, nuclear fission, even old-fashioned gunpowder works against them." Captain Li Jiwan coordinated the communications between human ships and the Grateful Council fleet. The aliens were learning human tactics on the fly, trying to adapt their own weapons to be more effective. But it was too little, too late for many Council ships. The Devourers had been feeding on their energy weapons for hours, growing larger and more powerful. Even with human help, the battle was far from over. A massive Devourer, larger than any they had seen, emerged from behind Kepler's largest moon. It had been feeding on the planet's energy while the fleet was distracted by the smaller creatures. "All ships priority target," Admiral Park commanded. "That big one is heading for the populated worlds. We stop it here or billions die." The human fleet turned as one toward the new threat. This was what they had come for, not just to fight, but to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Captain Choi De-hyun checked his weapons status. "All railguns loaded and ready. Nuclear missiles armed. Soul's Fury ready for battle." "Then let's show this monster what happens when it threatens humanity's friends," Admiral Park replied. The greatest test of human determination was about to begin. The alarm bells rang through Luna Base like screaming banshees. Captain Li Jiwan jumped from her chair in the communications center, her coffee spilling across the metal floor. She had been monitoring space signals for 12 years, but nothing had ever made the computers go crazy like this. "What's happening?" she shouted over the noise. Sergeant Kim Woo-jin was frantically typing at his station. "Captain, we're getting a signal from deep space. It's not like anything we've seen before. The computer can't figure out what language it is." Jiwan rushed to his side and looked at the screen. Strange symbols flowed across the monitor like water. The signal was powerful, stronger than anything Earth had ever received from space. It was coming from the direction of the galactic center, millions of light years away. "Run it through the alien language database," she ordered. Earth had been collecting alien communications for 50 years, ever since they discovered they weren't alone in the universe. Most aliens ignored Earth completely. They thought humans were too violent and stupid to be worth talking to. Hours passed as the computers worked. Jiwan called Admiral Park Min-ho at Earth Defense Headquarters. His weathered face appeared on the screen, looking tired but alert. "Admiral, we have something big here," Jiwan said. "This signal is different." "It's desperate." Park Min-ho frowned. "Desperate how?" "Sir, I think someone is asking for help." The computer finally beeped. Woo-jin's face went pale as he read the translation. "Captain, you need to see this." The message was simple but terrifying. "To all species who can hear this transmission, the Devourers have returned. They consume everything in their path. Entire star systems are gone. Billions are dead. The Galactic Council is falling. We need help. Anyone who can fight, please help us. Time is running out." Jiwan felt her blood turn cold. The Galactic Council was made up of 12 alien species, each more advanced than humanity. They had spaceships that could travel faster than light, weapons that could destroy planets, and technology that seemed like magic to humans. If they were losing, what could Earth possibly do? More messages started coming in. Refugee ships were heading toward Earth's solar system. The aliens were running from something so terrible that they were willing to ask humans for help, even though they had always looked down on Earth. Admiral Park called an emergency meeting at Earth Defense Headquarters. Jiwan took the first transport ship from Luna Base, carrying all the alien messages with her. The meeting room was packed with Earth's top military leaders and scientists. Dr. Kim Nari, The head of Alien Studies stood at the front with a grim expression. "The situation is worse than we thought," she began. "The Devourers aren't just another alien species. They're something else entirely. They eat energy itself. Every weapon the Council fires at them just makes them stronger." General Choi Sung-won, head of Earth's ground forces, shook his head. "How is that possible?" "We don't know," Dr. Kim replied. "But we're getting reports from across the galaxy. Entire civilizations are being wiped out in hours. The Devourers turn planets into empty rocks and move on to the next system." Admiral Park stood up slowly. He was 70 years old and had fought in 3 major wars on Earth. His voice was quiet but firm. "How long before they reach Earth?" "At their current speed, maybe 6 months," Dr. Kim said. "But that's if they come here directly. They might take longer if they stop to consume other worlds first." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. Earth had always been excluded from galactic politics because other species thought humans were too aggressive and warlike. Now those same species were begging for help. Captain Lee Ji-won stood up. "Sir, permission to speak?" Admiral Park nodded. "The aliens always said we were too violent," she said. "They called us savages and warmongers. They wouldn't let us join their council because they said we were too dangerous." She paused and looked around the room. "Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now." Commander Nam Ji-hoo from the Space Fleet leaned forward. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" "I'm saying that every time Earth has faced extinction, we've survived by doing things others thought were impossible or crazy. We don't fight fair. We don't follow rules. We fight to win no matter what it takes." Dr. Kim Nari pulled up a hologram showing the galaxy. Red areas marked where the Devourers had attacked. Nearly a quarter of known space was already dark. "The Council species fight with honor and precision," she explained. "They have rules about warfare. They try to minimize casualties and damage, but the Devourers don't care about rules." Admiral Park walked to the window overlooking Earth. The blue planet looked peaceful from space, but he knew better. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that should have wiped them out. They were still here because they refused to give up. "How many ships can we put together?" he asked. General Choi checked his tablet. "We have about 200 combat vessels. They're not as advanced as Council ships, but they're tough, built to take damage and keep fighting. And our weapons? Nuclear missiles, railguns, plasma cannons. The Council calls them primitive, but they pack a punch." Admiral Park made his decision. "Send a message to the Galactic Council. Tell them humanity accepts their request for help. We're sending our fleet." Dr. Kim looked worried. "Sir, are you sure? We'll be facing an enemy that destroyed civilizations millions of years ahead of us technologically." The Admiral turned back to face the room. His eyes were hard as steel. "Doctor, for 50 years, the galaxy has told us we're too violent to be civilized. Today we're going to show them that sometimes civilization isn't enough. Sometimes you need people who are willing to be savage." He walked to the communications panel and opened a channel to every military base on Earth and in the solar system. "This is Admiral Park Min-ho to all Earth Defense Forces. We have received a distress call from the galactic community. An enemy unlike any we've faced before is threatening to destroy all life in the galaxy. The same alien species who rejected us for being too warlike are now asking us to fight for them." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I'm calling for volunteers only. This mission will be dangerous. Many of us won't come home, but if we don't act, Earth will be next. And we've never been the kind of species that waits for the enemy to come to us." The response was immediate. Every ship captain, every pilot, every soldier volunteered. Within hours, Earth's greatest fleet was being assembled. They called it Operation Valkyrie. As Captain Lee Ji-won prepared to return to Luna Base to coordinate communications, Admiral Park pulled her aside. "Captain, I want you to send one more message to the Council." "What should it say, sir?" Admiral Park smiled grimly. "Tell them the cavalry is coming.